Diabolical things I want in a man. Number 1, height. My man's gotta be above 6'2". My last 2 boyfriends were 6'3". Both of them. And they were jacked. And they looked really good. How am I supposed to downgrade from that? So, unfortunately, my next man will have to be 6'2" and up.
This woman just perfectly encapsulated the modern female sexual market delusion in under 30 seconds. First, let's address the height requirement. She demands men be over 6 feet 2 inches tall. That eliminates roughly 92% of the entire male population immediately. But it gets worse. She's now saying her next man needs to be 6 feet and up, which is still 85% of men eliminated. But listen to how she frames this. How am I supposed to downgrade from that? She's talking about human beings like their luxury cars that she's trading in for newer models. She's referring to dating men shorter than her previous boyfriends as a downgrade, as if a man's worth as a human being is determined entirely by his height and physical appearance. Here's what she's really revealing. She got sexual access to high-value men who were using her for casual sex, and now she thinks that temporary sexual access means she deserves those men as committed partners. Those 6 feet 3 inches jacked guys weren't her boyfriends in any meaningful sense. They were high-value men who kept her around for easy sex while they dated women in their own league for relationships. But her brain can't process this distinction. She thinks, we had sex regularly equals, we were in a relationship equals, I deserve this level of man permanently. She doesn't understand that she was the practice girl, the placeholder, the convenient option while they looked for someone worthy of their actual commitment. Now she's demanding that every future man meet or exceed the standards of men who were just using her for sex. She's created a completely impossible standard based on her delusional interpretation of what those relationships actually were. She thinks she was dating those men when in reality, they were just getting easy access to sex while keeping their options open. This is hypergamy without reality testing. She's pricing herself into a market segment where she has absolutely no value while refusing to acknowledge her actual sexual market value. The men she's demanding don't need her. They have access to younger, more attractive, less entitled women who haven't been run through by multiple high-value men.
Number 2, he cannot have a salary cap. Whatever career he's in, he needs to have multiple streams of income, and we need to be able to make as much money as possible. That's why I will never date a guy who works in like corporate. What is your 100K salary cap gonna do for me?
What is your $100,000 salary cap going to do for me? Let that question marinate for a moment. This woman just dismissed a 6-figure income, which puts a man in roughly the top 20% of all income earners, as insufficient for her needs. She's talking about $100,000 per year like it's poverty wages while demanding men with unlimited earning potential and multiple income streams. But here's the really insidious part of this mentality. Notice how she frames everything in terms of what men can do for her. She's not talking about building a life together, contributing to a partnership, or creating mutual value. She's explicitly describing men as resources to be extracted from. Her entire evaluation of male worth is based on their ability to subsidize her lifestyle. This woman has zero understanding of basic economics or financial reality. She's rejecting men who make more money than 80% of the population while demanding access to men who are statistical outliers in terms of wealth creation. She wants men with unlimited income potential, which basically means entrepreneurs, business owners, or men in extremely high-risk, high-reward careers. But here's what she doesn't understand. The men with that level of earning potential and ambition don't need women like her. They can afford to be extremely selective. They can choose from women who are younger, far more attractive, more feminine, and who actually bring value to the table beyond just existing. She's basically demanding access to men who are in the top 5% of height, top 5% of physical fitness, and top 1% of earning potential. We're talking about men who represent maybe 0.01% of the entire male population. And what is she offering in return? Attitude, entitlement, and a sexual history that includes multiple previous boyfriends who were clearly just using her for sex. This is the fundamental delusion of modern women. They think their standards are reasonable when they're actually demanding access to men who are literally statistical anomalies. They've been conditioned by social media and dating apps to believe that average women deserve extraordinary men, without ever questioning what they bring to the table that would justify such access. But the most revealing part of her entire rant is how she talks about men as objects to be consumed rather than human beings to build relationships with. She's not looking for love, partnership, or genuine connection. She's looking for a lifestyle upgrade. She wants a tall, rich man to subsidize her existence while she contributes nothing meaningful to his life. This is what happens when women are raised to believe that their mere existence entitles them to the best of everything. They develop completely unrealistic expectations while offering nothing in return except access to sexual intimacy that they've already given away to multiple other men. This woman will spend the next 10 to 15 years wondering why she can't find a good man while rejecting every man who actually approaches her. She'll age out of her prime years waiting for a fantasy man who doesn't exist, at least not for her. By the time she realizes her standards were unrealistic, she'll be competing with women half her age who haven't spent their 20s getting used by men who had no intention of committing to them. This woman managed to demonstrate every single toxic trait that has destroyed the modern dating market: unrealistic standards, resource extraction mentality, sexual history without accountability, and a fundamental inability to understand her own sexual market value. Let's start with the height requirement because it perfectly encapsulates the absurdity of modern female standards. She demands men over 6 feet 2 inches, which eliminates 92% of the male population immediately. But this isn't just a preference, it's a hard requirement that she considers non-negotiable. She literally cannot conceive of being attracted to a man who doesn't meet this arbitrary height standard. This height obsession reveals something fundamental about female psychology that they refuse to acknowledge. Women are not attracted to men as individuals, they're attracted to genetic markers of superiority. Height is a proxy for genetic fitness, social dominance, and the ability to provide physical protection. But modern women have taken this biological impulse and turned it into a rigid checklist that eliminates the vast majority of good men based on factors completely beyond their control. The really insidious part is how she frames shorter men as downgrades. She's dehumanizing 90% of the male population by suggesting that their worth as partners is determined entirely by their height. She can't see past this single physical characteristic to evaluate men based on their character, values, intelligence, or ability to be good partners. But the financial requirements reveal an even deeper psychological dysfunction. She doesn't just want a wealthy man. She wants a man with unlimited earning potential and multiple income streams. She's essentially demanding access to entrepreneurs and business owners while dismissing six-figure corporate salaries as inadequate. This woman has no understanding of basic financial reality. A $100,000 salary puts a man in the top 20% of income earners, but she dismisses it as worthless. She wants men who can make as much money as possible without any upper limit. She's demanding access to men who are statistical outliers in terms of wealth creation. But here's what reveals her true nature. Notice how she frames everything in terms of what men can do for her. She's not talking about partnership, mutual support, or building a life together. She's explicitly describing men as resources to be extracted from. Her entire evaluation system is based on what men can provide her rather than what she can contribute to a relationship. This is the modern woman's fundamental delusion. They think relationships are about what they can get rather than what they can give. They approach dating like they're shopping for products rather than looking for partners. They want to be consumers rather than contributors. The sexual history aspect is particularly revealing because she casually mentions having multiple previous boyfriends who met her impossible standards. But think about what this actually means. She had access to these high-value men for sexual relationships, but none of them considered her worthy of long-term commitment. They used her for easy sex. She thinks temporary sexual access equals genuine romantic value. She doesn't understand that the men who will sleep with her casually would never consider her for marriage or serious relationships. She's confused sexual availability with relationship potential. Now she's demanding that every future man meet or exceed the standards of men who were just using her for sex. The men she's demanding don't need her. They have access to younger, more attractive, more feminine women who haven't been used by multiple high-value men. They can choose from women who actually appreciate what they bring to the table instead of viewing them as lifestyle upgrades. But the most toxic aspect of her entire worldview is the entitlement. She genuinely believes she deserves access to extraordinary men based on nothing more than her existence as a woman. She's not talking about earning or deserving this level of man through her own value creation, she's talking about it as her birthright. This is what feminist propaganda has created, a generation of women who think they deserve the best of everything while contributing nothing meaningful in return. They've been conditioned to believe that their standards are reasonable when they're actually demanding access to men who are literally 1 in a million. What competitive advantage does this woman have in that marketplace? What does she bring to the table that would make a top-tier man choose her over any other woman? This is why men are walking away from modern women. Men refuse to compete for the privilege of being someone's backup plan while she chases men who will never commit to her. Smart men are not going to subsidize the lifestyles of women who view them as resources rather than partners. The modern sexual marketplace is broken, and women like this are the reason why.